Yeah, I don't know what happened to it.
Any sponsorship?
I have a week. I don't know who it is.
Okay. I got it started. Okay, good morning. Today's daf is daf nun beis. Unfortunately, we're picking up way back on the Aleph nun beis. This is going to be a tough day. All right. So I think the Rav left off. The fifth wide line at the end of the line. So we say glima mesiach chashinan. So we're talking about here that if a bird were to bang into something, would that cause the damage of risuk evarim, of shaking the bones, and that would require us to wait 24 hours and then check, or if it walked, then not. But, so we talk about if you have a glima is like a garment. Mesiach, Rashi explains, it's stretched by like some stakes or pegs, so it's stretched taut, and if the bird flies into that chashinan, then we have to worry that it's a treifa. The lo mesiach, but if it wasn't, you just had a cloth and it wasn't tied tightly, lo chashinan, you wouldn't have to worry because when the bird bangs into it, it's not that much of a bang. Of umu'ufaf lo chashinan. That if this, Rashi explains, even if it was stretched tight, but if you had a sheet that was folded, and ufaf means folded and folded, because I don't know that it necessarily requires double folding, but if it's folded and stretched, Rashi explains that doesn't really, it's not possible to make that too tight that it would be a concern. Isla umekavi kitri chashinan, lo mekavi kitri lo chashinan. So if you have a net and the bird flies into the net, so if it's a very tight net that has, how's a net constructed? It's constructed of knots. Knots are tougher than the strings that are there. So if it has a lot of knots that the bird bangs into it, that those hard knots could cause it to become a treifa. But if the knots are reasonably distant from one another, so it's not going to get that same level of hard impact, then we're not worried. Kisna the avid betune chashinan. So we say as follows, that if you have kisna is flax that was made betune, so Rashi says pishanase chavilas, so he made them into bundles. So we say as follows, that if you have flax, even though flax is a relatively soft thing, if you have it in a bundle, it's tight, it could be hard, and we worry about if the bird bangs into it to become a treifa. But the Gemara clarifies the high geese loy chashinon. But if it hit off the sides, meaning it kind of glanced off the side of this bundle, so it didn't just hit the bundle head on, but it like hit the side and glanced off, that's not enough of a hard bang that we're worried, so then we would not be concerned about treifa in that case. Continues the Gemara 4 lines up from the bottom. Asuraisa chashinon. Rashi says Asuraisa is chavilos shel kanim, that you have bundles of branches. So that's something pretty tough, and therefore we need to be concerned that the bird might have had risuk evarim. Kisna the daik minafetz lo chashinan. So if you have, before we talked about bundles of flax and we were worried about it, here we're talking about you have freestanding flax that's both been daik v'nafetz. Daik is they kind of hammer it or smash the flax, and then nafetz is they comb it to kind of get the fibers out. So if it's already been processed in that way, lo chashinan, because it's a soft material, and if the bird bangs into it, we're not concerned that it becomes a treifa. Daik v'lo nafetz chashinan. But if in other words, what happens? Why do we bang it before we comb it? Is because we're banging it to break up these hard pieces. So if you have done the banging to break up the hard pieces, and now you have the flax and it's full of hard pieces, so then chashinan you have to worry because the bird banging into it is banging into a hard surface. The avid, I'm sorry. Kiss the daik v'nafetz is like chashinan. So if you did all the processing, you're not worried. Daik v'lo it's chashinan. But if you banged it and you didn't comb out those hard pieces, we are choshesh. The avid bizri. Now, what happens if you took these? Rashi says that you took these bundles of flax once they were processed. So even though they were processed, as Rashi says, afilu daik v'nafetz chashinan mishum kitri de'ispe. So it's a way that they used to bundle the flax, that it basically tied up the flax. And so once you do a tie, we learned this at the beginning, that if you have a knot is considered a hard surface, and therefore we have to worry that the bird banged into it with force and could be a treifa. Daksa chashinan, daksa loy chashinan. So what is this? So Rashi says daksa is na'ara shiboli givolin aninarim min apishtan kishmin fitzin also. So this is those same. So before we talked about if you had flax that had been banged and it had the hard pieces still in it, so we said that's a concern. Here we're talking about the actual hard pieces. So if you have a pile of this stuff, then that is a concern. Daktaksa, but if you have daktaksa, you're not chayish. What is that? This is also a byproduct of the flax production process, but this is actually something that's very soft. So for that, loy chashin, Rashi says in Yeshmin Akri, if there's a pile al gabe karka on the ground, that we don't worry if the bird bangs into it because that's considered a soft that's considered a soft surface, and we don't have to worry that the bird became a treifa. Navra chashinan. So a navra is. Sorry, let me just find it. Is siv agadol savav adekalim. Okay, so this is talking about there are certain kinds of trees that they used to make rope from, right? So where would the rope would come from some material. Siv hagadol savav adekalim. So you had a date tree, and there would be some kind of membrane or substance that would grow around the circumference of the date tree. And what would they do? Rashi says miyavshino, so they would dry it. V'nechlak l'ritzuos. And then they would subsequently make it into like strings or fibers. So we say as follows, that navra, that if it's in its hard form, then chashinon, we worry about it. Timchasa loy chashinon. But on the other hand, after Rashi says, lachar shachukul ritzuos lahai navra, so once you take once you've dried out that material and put it into fibers such that you're going to make rope, then those fibers are soft, and therefore we're not concerned if the bird bangs into it. We're not concerned about treifa. Kitma niala chashinan lo niala lo chashinan. So if your kitma is like ashes, so if you have ashes that are niala, Rashi says meruket benafa, that you've sifted them. So if you've sifted the ashes, so then we're worried. Why? Because, and we're going to see this as we come up into today's daf, that anything that can become easily compacted, so even if it's soft, ashes are soft, but if you're going to compact them, then they're going to become hard, and then we have to worry if the bird bangs into it. So we're saying as follows, that if you have sifted ashes, so that it's easy for it to become compacted, chashinan, we have to worry. Lo niala, but if we're talking about that it has not been sifted, so Rashi says, ein nichbesh, that it doesn't get flattened and hard, and therefore we would not have to concern ourselves with it. Okay, top of Nambei Zamad Aleph. Continues the Gemara with cases similar to this. Chul hadak loy chashinon, chul hagas chashinon. Chol hadak loy chashinon, chol hagas chashinon. So if you have sand, same idea, that if you have very small grains of sand, so Rashi says, the mistrik, they slip, they don't get compacted down because these are very fine grains of sand. Chol hagas chashinan, but when you have not such, or actually Rashi doesn't say it's not so much, it's not that it's not fine sand, but he says, avanim gedolah shebo meraskin ha'of kishenofa aleim. So you have, sometimes you could have, I think European beaches are this way, the sand, it's like it's rocks. So if you have that kind of sand, then then you have to be concerned, because perhaps if the bird bangs into it, it gets sufficient jarring that you have to be concerned about risek evarim. Okay, avak derachim chashinon, that if you have the dust of the road, you have to worry. Why? Because when you have a dirt road, after a while it gets very hard, because it gets rolled over by cars, animals, people, and it gets hard. Tivna v'avid bazga chashinan. So if you have tivna is straw, so Rashi says tevin shachitin usorin. Bazga is a chavila, so you put it into a bundle. So that you have to be concerned, because it is a hard surface and the bird can bang into it. Lo avid bazga lo chashinan. But if you just have straw, that a pile of straw that hasn't been made into a bundle, so then that's a relatively soft surface, and a bird that bangs into it, we don't need to be concerned. So that if you have wheat and anything like it, meaning that is soft, that is hard, like wheat is hard, a wheat kernel, chashinon, we have to be concerned if a bird bangs, flies into a bundle or into a pile of these wheat kernels. Sari v'chodominayu, that if you have barley, which is considered soft, and anything like it that's soft, we have it written chashinon, but if you look at Masaras Hashas, it's lo chashinon. That we don't need to worry, because unlike wheat, which is very hard, barley is soft, and we're not concerned that the bird is going to have risuk evarim. Kol minei kitnios ein behem mishum risuk evarim. That all kitnios are beans or legumes do not have a concern. Why? Because they are. It's actually not a question of soft so much. Rashi says. He says, that you can't. In other words, beans are gonna shift with each other. They're slippery, so they're never going to get compacted down to a point that you have to worry about it. So we say that's true of all beans, levarim and ruvia, except for ruvia. Ruvia is fenugreek. So interestingly, the Gemara in Brachos discusses that the only way you could eat it to become edible is you have to cook it 7 times. So probably that was a very hard thing, and maybe that's why in this case ruvia is an exception from all other forms of legumes. Chimtzi ein bo mishum risuk evarim. So if you have chimtzi, Rashi says pishlish. So this is like a pea, which is a round object. So that you don't have to worry about. But chefzi yes bo mishum risuk evarim. But chefzi is what is this is talking about what we would like a chickpea. A chickpea, which is, so it's not like a regular. It's how is it different? Rashi explains because it is because it's not fully round. So a pea is round, so it's going to always roll. Versus chickpeas are not round, so therefore they don't have that same rolling effect. And if a bird were to hit it, we have to be concerned that impact is not going to be absorbed by the movement of the chickpeas like you would have by a regular pea. Okay, continues the Gemara. Klala de Milsa. What's the rule that we're dealing with here? There's really 2 rules, but the Gemara will say one: Kol midi de mishrik ein ba mishum risuk evarim, lo mishrik yesh ba mishum risuk evarim. That anything that is slippery, I would add in, or soft, because we had things that weren't slippery but they were soft. So in that case, you're not worried. You're not worried about the animal having risuk evarim. But if it's something that is not slippery, meaning that it can stand firm in its place, and it's something that's hard, then you would be concerned about risuk evarim, and that is the all of the cases that we've just gone over. Okay, continues the Gemara. We're about 10 lines down. First word on the line. Davok. Rav Ashi Shari Ameimar Aser. So what's going on here? So Rashi explains that you had like I'm assuming it was like a trap. That they used to use with a sticky substance, glud balaz, and that they would take a board and they would rub on it a sticky substance, and when the bird would land on it, it would be stuck to it. So I guess this was a way of capturing birds. But what are we dealing with here? Where the bird flew onto this trap, and then from its movement or whatever it is, it fell down, and the question is, do we have to worry about risuk evarim? So Rav Ashi says, you don't, and you can just go ahead and shech the bird and eat it. And Ameimar says, no, it's aser, meaning that you would have to wait me'es le'es and then check it to do the bedika. So we say, b'chad gapa de kuliyama lo pligi de shari. So he says, let's understand this machlokes, that if only one wing of the bird got stuck onto this trap, then everyone would agree that it's permitted. Why? Because as the trap is falling down, the bird is flapping its wing, and that wing cushions the fall, and therefore we don't assume that the animal had risuk evarim. Ki pligi. So if they all agree by one that it's mutter, when do Ameimar and Rav Ashi argue is betray gapi, when both wings are stuck to this glue board. Manda asar amar lach hechinekom. So he says the one who says that this bird is asar, you have to worry about risuk evarim, is because If the bird is missing, both its wings are incapacitated, how do you expect it to do anything? So it's like a dead weight, and therefore you have to be concerned like any animal that falls. Umandashari, but according to Rashi, who says that it's mutter, Amrlach, he'll say, after the nekoma ikva the gapi, that it's possible that the bird will lift itself with the ikva digapi is the kind of the roots of the, I don't know if the root is the right word, but the part of the wing that's not the feathers. Rashi says, "B'mixas who knows it's asman b'ikvei hagapayim," that a little bit he can lift himself with the v'hu rosh hakanaf makom shechotun haknaf min ha'evos. So he says that this is where it's the top of the wing, meaning closer to the body of the bird. But basically, even when its wings are stuck to the glue, it can move itself in a way that will cushion the fall when this board falls. Okay, so that's one version of the Gemara that everyone agrees if one wing is free, that's enough. But by two they argue. The others who say betray gapi kuli amalo pligi da'aser, that it's the other way around. That if both wings are attached, are glued to this board, so then the bird can't go anywhere. So therefore, when it falls, it's a regular fall, and you would have to be concerned. Ki pligi, when do they argue? Bechad gapa. When only one wing is stuck to this board, Mandashari, so Rav Ashi says that it's mutter and you could shech the bird right away, would tell you, Amrlach, would tell you after the parach bechad gapa, that maybe it is capable for it to flap its free wing, and therefore it'll cushion the fall, and we're not worried about Risa Gavarim. Manda Aser, according to Ameimar, who says that this